The sky over Ohio was unusually quiet that morning. Jen Carter stood in her backyard, sipping coffee from a chipped mug and scrolling through her phone. Her garden, though small, was bursting with herbs. Basil, rosemary, thyme, and she often joked that it smelled better than most restaurants. As a food blogger, Jen had a knack for turning simple ingredients into something magical. But today, her attention wasn't on her plants or her latest recipe idea. Something strange was happening. High above the horizon, a faint glow appeared, almost like sunlight reflecting off a cloud. At first, people thought it was just an airplane or maybe a weather balloon. But as the minutes passed, the glow grew brighter, and soon, the entire town stopped what they were doing to look up. The object wasn't moving like a plane. It hovered silently, casting an eerie greenish hue across the landscape. By noon, news outlets confirmed it. A massive alien ship had entered Earth's orbit. Panic spread quickly. Some people ran to grocery stores to stock up on supplies, while others gathered in parks to watch the skies. Governments around the world held emergency meetings, trying to figure out if this was an invasion or some kind of cosmic accident. Scientists debated endlessly on TV, throwing around terms like extraterrestrial life and first contact. Meanwhile, Jen couldn't shake the feeling that there was more to this story than met the eye. It started when she noticed the smell. Around mid-afternoon, a thin mist began drifting down from the ship. It wasn't heavy enough to cause alarm, but it clung to everything, a soft haze that made the air feel alive. Most people described it as metallic or chemical, but Jen's nose told her otherwise. Standing near her herb garden, she caught a whiff of something familiar yet completely out of place. Cilantro, garlic, and something else, spicy, tangy, almost electric. Curious, Jen grabbed a jar from her kitchen and stepped outside again. She waved the jar through the mist, collecting a tiny sample. Back inside, she placed the jar under her microscope, the same one she used for analyzing spice blends. What she saw amazed her. The particles shimmered faintly, shifting colors like oil on water. They didn't behave like any compound she'd ever encountered, but instead of fear, Jen felt excitement bubbling inside her. This wasn't poison. It was seasoning. Her neighbor Alex Bennett stopped by later that evening, carrying a 6-pack of soda. He leaned against her fence, watching the glowing ship with a mix of awe and amusement. "So," he said, cracking open a can, "aliens finally show up, and all you care about is sniffing their exhaust." Jen laughed, holding up the jar. "You should smell this stuff, Alex. It's like nothing I've ever tasted before. Spicy, sweet, earthy. It's incredible." Alex raised an eyebrow. "You think aliens came all this way just to teach us how to cook?" "Maybe," Jen replied, grinning. "Wouldn't that be something?" As the sun set, the mist thickened slightly, wrapping the town in its peculiar aroma. People whispered about contamination and danger, but Jen couldn't help imagining the possibilities. If the aliens really did bring spices, what could humanity do with them? Entire cuisines could be reinvented. New flavors, new experiences. It was thrilling. For now, no one knew what the aliens wanted. Were they here to conquer, observe, or share? All Jen knew was that the answer might lie in the jar sitting on her kitchen counter. And if anyone could crack the code, it would be her. After all, cooking was just chemistry with a dash of creativity. And Jen had plenty of both. Across the street, Alex shook his head, still skeptical but unable to hide his grin. "Well," he said, "if they try to invade, I guess we'll just hit 'em with your secret sauce." Jen chuckled, already sketching notes for her next experiment. For better or worse, the aliens had chosen Earth. And if their arrival involved food, then humanity might just have a fighting chance, or at least a delicious meal. By the next morning, the alien ship still hadn't moved. It hung in the sky like a giant question mark, silent and mysterious. People were restless. Some prayed, others argued, and a few even tried to ignore it altogether. But Jen couldn't stop thinking about the strange mist and the jars she'd collected. She spent hours scribbling notes, trying to make sense of what she'd seen under the microscope. The particles didn't match anything on Earth. They weren't toxic, but they weren't ordinary either. Whatever they felt intentional. While Jen worked in her kitchen, Alex wandered over again, this time with a plate of pancakes smothered in syrup. "Breakfast," he announced, setting the plate on her cluttered table. "You're gonna need fuel if you're planning to outsmart aliens." Jen smiled but didn't look up from her notebook. "Thanks, Alex. I think I'm onto something here." "Oh yeah." He leaned over her shoulder, squinting at the messy handwriting. "What's all this? Secret alien cookbook?" "Maybe," Jen said, tapping her pen against the paper. The symbols in their transmission looked like instructions, measurements, ratios, steps. It's almost like they sent us a recipe. Alex blinked. "Wait, you're saying aliens came here to teach us how to cook?" "It's possible," Jen replied. "Think about it. They didn't attack. They didn't demand anything. They just sent this weird message. And that mist smells like seasoning. What if they're trying to share something instead of hurt us?" Alex scratched his head. "That's actually kind of cool. But why would aliens care about human food?" "I don't know," Jen admitted. "Maybe they're curious about us. Or maybe they think we're missing out on something big." As the day went on, news broke that scientists around the world were struggling to decode the alien message. Governments had teams working nonstop, but no one could agree on what the symbols meant. Was it a warning? A greeting? A threat? Frustrated by the lack of progress, Jen decided to take matters into her own hands. If anyone could crack a code disguised as a recipe, it was her. She posted photos of the mist under the microscope on her blog, along with her theory that the aliens might be sharing culinary secrets. Within hours, her post went viral. People flooded her comments section with theories, questions, and jokes. Some accused her of being reckless, while others praised her creativity. One commenter even suggested she try mixing the mist with water to see if it dissolved. Jen hesitated, but eventually gave it a shot. To her surprise, the mixture turned bright green and bubbled slightly, releasing an even stronger aroma of spices. Meanwhile, Alex kept her company, offering both moral support and sarcastic remarks. "So when do we get to taste test your alien soup?" he asked, watching her stir the bubbling liquid. "Not yet," Jen said, laughing. "I'm not risking my life until I know what I'm dealing with." Her experiment caught the attention of Dr. Patricia Monroe, a xenobiologist known for her work studying extraterrestrial life. Pat reached out to Jen via email, praising her innovative approach and asking if they could collaborate. Jen was thrilled. Finally, someone took her seriously. Pat explained that the mist contained compounds unlike anything found on Earth. While they weren't harmful, they seemed designed to interact with living organisms in specific ways. "It's almost like they're trying to enhance our senses," Pat told Jen during a video call. "But why?" Jen shrugged. "Maybe they want us to understand them better. Food is universal, right? Everyone eats. Maybe this is their way of starting a conversation." Pat nodded thoughtfully. "If that's true, then your idea of treating this as a recipe makes perfect sense. Let's see where it takes us." With Pat's help, Jen began analyzing the alien symbols more closely. Each one corresponded to a step or ingredient in the process. Some were easy to interpret. A spiral meant mix, while a triangle represented heat, but others remained baffling. Alex, who had no background in science, amused himself by doodling his own versions of the symbols. "What if this one means add extra cheese?" he joked, drawing a lopsided star. Despite the humor, everyone involved knew the stakes were high. If Jen and Pat were wrong, the mist could still pose unknown risks. But if they were right, humanity might have a chance to connect with the aliens, not through weapons or fear, but through curiosity and flavor. As night fell, Jen stared at the glowing ship in the sky. For the first time since its arrival, she felt hopeful. Maybe the aliens weren't invaders after all. Maybe they were chefs, eager to share their craft with a new audience. And if that was true, then humanity wasn't just facing a challenge. It was being invited to a feast. The next morning, Jen woke up feeling both excited and nervous. She had spent most of the night thinking about the alien mist and the strange recipe symbols. Her kitchen was a mess. Jars, papers, and half-empty coffee cups covered every surface. Alex showed up early, carrying 2 steaming cups of coffee from his favorite diner. "Thought you could use some reinforcements," he said, handing her one of the cups. "Thanks," Jen replied, sipping gratefully. "I didn't get much sleep. My brain won't stop spinning." Alex chuckled. "Aliens on your mind again." "All over it," she admitted. "But I think I'm getting closer to figuring this out." While Jen worked on decoding the symbols, reports started coming in from towns near the crash site. People who had been exposed to the green mist were experiencing unusual symptoms. Tingling tongues, vivid dreams about exotic foods, and an overwhelming craving for spicy dishes. Some panicked, thinking they were being poisoned. Others found the sensations oddly pleasant, like their taste buds had been supercharged. Jen wasn't surprised. The mist seemed designed to enhance human senses, not harm them. To test her theory, she decided to expose herself to a small amount. Using tweezers, she carefully dabbed a drop of the diluted mist onto her fingertip and touched it to her tongue. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, a warm sensation spread across her mouth, followed by an explosion of flavors she couldn't describe. It was as if every spice cabinet in the world had opened at once. Sharp, sweet, smoky, tangy, all swirling together in perfect harmony. "Whoa," Alex said, watching her reaction. "You okay?" "I'm fine," Jen replied, wide-eyed. "Actually, I'm amazing. This is incredible. It's like my sense of taste just leveled up." Alex raised an eyebrow. "So, what? You're saying aliens turned you into a superhero chef?" "Not quite," Jen laughed. "But it feels like they gave me a gift. With this, I can detect flavors I never noticed before. Maybe that's the point, to help us understand their food." Word of Jen's experiments spread quickly, thanks to her blog. People were fascinated and skeptical. Some accused her of being reckless, while others praised her bravery. A few even asked if they could try the mist themselves. Jen hesitated but eventually agreed to let Pat, the xenobiologist, analyze her findings further. Together, they confirmed that the mist wasn't dangerous. It was transformative. Pat explained that the compounds in the mist interacted with human biology in subtle ways. They heightened sensory perception without causing harm. "It's almost like they're teaching us a new language," Pat said during another video call. "Except instead of words, it's flavors." Meanwhile, governments around the world grew increasingly uneasy. Military leaders argued that the aliens' intentions were still unclear and pushed for aggressive action. But Jen refused to believe the mist was anything but benevolent. She shared her results online, urging people to see the situation as an opportunity rather than a threat. Her argument gained traction, especially after videos surfaced showing happy families cooking meals inspired by the alien flavors. Alex, ever the optimist, joked that humanity might have just discovered its new favorite seasoning. "Imagine pizza with alien spices," he said, grinning. Game changer. As days passed, Jen continued experimenting with the mist, blending it into different recipes. She tried adding it to soups, sauces, and even desserts. Each dish became a masterpiece, bursting with complexity and depth. Alex, despite his initial skepticism, became her unofficial taste tester. "Okay, this one's my favorite so far," he declared after sampling a batch of spiced chocolate brownies. "You should bottle this stuff." But Jen knew there was more to uncover. The aliens hadn't just sent a random sample, they'd included instructions. And those instructions still needed decoding. With Pat's guidance, she focused on piecing together the steps of the recipe. Slowly, a pattern emerged. The symbols weren't just random. They formed a logical sequence, guiding the user through each stage of preparation. One evening, as Jen sat surrounded by notes and jars, Alex leaned back in his chair and sighed. You know, if this really is a recipe, then maybe the aliens aren't trying to invade. Maybe they're just hungry for connection. Jen looked at him, surprised by the thought. You might be right, she said softly. Maybe they're offering us a seat at their table. For the first time, the glowing ship in the sky didn't seem so intimidating. Instead, it felt like an invitation, an olive branch made of spices and flavor. And Jen was determined to accept it. The pressure was mounting. Governments around the world were divided on how to handle the alien ship. Some military leaders argued that humanity should strike first, fearing the worst. Others hesitated, unsure if aggression would escalate into disaster. Amid the chaos, Jen and Alex found themselves at the center of a growing movement. People were starting to listen to Jen's theory that the aliens weren't invaders but curious visitors with a unique way of communicating. Jen knew she had to act fast. If the world attacked the ship, it could destroy any chance of understanding the aliens' intentions. With Alex by her side, she drafted a proposal outlining her findings. The mist wasn't poison, it was seasoning. The symbols weren't a threat, they were instructions. And the aliens might just be trying to share something beautiful. Food. She sent the proposal to every official she could think of, hoping someone would listen. Her efforts paid off when Dr. Patricia Monroe stepped in. Pat had connections in high places, including members of an international science council tasked with responding to the alien arrival. After reviewing Jen's data, Pat convinced the council to delay military action for 48 hours. It wasn't much time, but it was enough for Jen to prove her point. Okay, Alex said, pacing Jen's living room. So now what? We're supposed to whip up some alien dish and hope they don't blow us up. Pretty much, Jen replied, flipping through her notes. If we can recreate part of their recipe, maybe they'll see we're trying to understand them. Pat joined them via video call, offering guidance. Together, they identified several Earth ingredients that closely matched the compounds in the mist. Cilantro, chili peppers, garlic, and citrus fruits seemed like good starting points. Using these, Jen began assembling a dish inspired by the alien recipe. She roasted spices, blended sauces, and layered flavors until the kitchen smelled like a mix of curry, barbecue, and something entirely new. Alex hovered nearby, sneaking tastes whenever he thought Jen wasn't looking. This smells amazing, he admitted. But do you really think the aliens will care about our little experiment? It's worth a shot, Jen said firmly. If they came here to share, then this is how we respond, with curiosity and openness. By the end of the day, Jen had created a hearty stew infused with the essence of the alien mist. It was rich, spicy, and unlike anything she'd ever made before. She filmed herself preparing and tasting the dish, explaining each step in simple terms. Then, with Pat's help, she uploaded the video to a secure channel monitored by global leaders. Alongside the video, she included a message. We tried your recipe. Can we learn more? For hours, there was no response. The alien ship remained silent, its green glow casting long shadows over the town. Jen paced nervously, while Alex tried to lighten the mood with jokes about intergalactic cooking shows. But deep down, even he was worried. What if they had misinterpreted everything? What if the aliens saw their gesture as foolish or insulting? Finally, late that night, the ship responded. A beam of light shot down from the sky, projecting a holographic image above the nearest government facility. The image showed a table set with dishes, steaming bowls, platters of colorful food, and intricate garnishes. In the center of the table was a plate holding a small portion of Jen's stew, recreated exactly as she had prepared it. Beneath the image, a single word appeared, written in glowing letters. Interesting. The room erupted in cheers. Officials who had doubted Jen's theory now scrambled to analyze the message. Clearly, the aliens weren't hostile. They were intrigued. Pat called Jen immediately, her voice trembling with excitement. "You did it," she said. "They're interested. This changes everything." Jen sank onto her couch, overwhelmed but relieved. "I guess they liked my cooking," she joked weakly. Alex grinned. "Well, you always did have a knack for making people happy with food. Guess that applies to aliens too." As news of the breakthrough spread, public opinion shifted dramatically. Protesters demanding military action quieted down, replaced by crowds celebrating the possibility of peace. Restaurants began experimenting with recipes inspired by Jen's stew, adding dashes of creativity and hope. For the first time since the ship arrived, humanity felt united, not by fear, but by curiosity and a shared love of discovery. Jen stared at the glowing ship in the sky, her heart swelling with pride. Maybe the aliens hadn't come to conquer or destroy. Maybe they'd come to teach, and maybe humanity was ready to learn. The days following the aliens' response were a whirlwind of activity. Jen, Alex, and Pat worked tirelessly to decode more of the alien recipe, determined to understand its full meaning. The holographic message had been clear. The aliens were intrigued by humanity's attempt to connect through food. But Jen knew they were only scratching the surface. The real challenge was figuring out how to take the next step. With Pat's help, Jen used advanced equipment to analyze the mist even further. They discovered that each compound in the mist mimicked an earth ingredient, but with subtle differences. For example, one particle resembled chili peppers but carried hints of citrus and cinnamon. Another mimicked basil but tasted like caramelized onions. These flavors weren't random. They were carefully balanced, designed to create harmony on the tongue. "It's like they're speaking a language we can taste," Jen said, jotting down notes. "Every flavor has a purpose." Alex, who had taken on the role of unofficial assistant, handed her another jar of spices. "So what you're saying is, aliens are basically gourmet chefs." "Something like that," Jen replied with a laugh. "But it's not just about flavor. It's about connection. Food brings people together. It might do the same for them." Pat nodded in agreement. "If we can replicate their dishes accurately, it could open the door to real communication. Maybe even friendship." As they worked, Jen began piecing together the steps of the recipe. Some symbols were easy to interpret. A spiral meant mix, while a triangle represented heat, but others remained baffling. One symbol looked like a starburst, and no matter how hard they tried, they couldn't figure out what it meant. Frustrated, Jen stared at the symbol for hours, willing it to make sense. "You know," Alex said, breaking the silence, "what if it's not about cooking at all? What if it means something else? Like, I don't know, fun?" Jen tilted her head, considering his words. "Fun? Yeah," Alex continued. "Like maybe they want us to enjoy ourselves while we cook. You've been so focused on getting everything perfect, but what if they're saying, relax, have a good time?" Jen blinked, surprised by the idea. She had been treating the recipe like a science experiment, meticulously measuring every ingredient and timing every step. But maybe Alex was right. Maybe the aliens weren't just sharing instructions, they were inviting humanity to share joy. Inspired, Jen decided to approach the recipe differently. Instead of stressing over precision, she let herself experiment freely. She added dashes of unexpected spices, adjusted temperatures on a whim, and even played music while she cooked. Alex joined in, tossing herbs into pots and cracking jokes that made her laugh until her sides hurt. For the first time in days, the kitchen felt alive with energy. The result was astonishing. The dish they created wasn't just delicious. It was vibrant, layered, and full of personality. Each bite told a story, evoking memories and emotions Jen hadn't realized were tied to food. Pat sampled a spoonful and smiled. "This isn't just cooking," she said. "It's art." Encouraged by their success, Jen filmed another video, this time focusing on the process as much as the result. She explained how the recipe wasn't just about following rules. It was about creativity, collaboration, and joy. She ended the video with a simple message: "We're ready to learn more. Show us how." Once again, the aliens responded. This time, the hologram showed a series of images. Aliens gathered around a table, laughing, sharing food, and gesturing toward empty seats. Beneath the images, a new word appeared: join. Jen's hands trembled as she watched the message replay over and over. The invitation was clear. The aliens wanted humanity to join them, not as enemies or subjects, but as equals. It was a moment that would change everything. Alex clapped her on the back, grinning. "Looks like you're getting an intergalactic dinner invite. Don't forget to bring dessert." Jen laughed, though her heart raced with excitement. The road ahead was uncertain, but one thing was clear: the aliens weren't just visitors. They were teachers, storytellers, and perhaps friends. And Jen was ready to meet them, with an open mind, a curious spirit, and a plate full of possibilities. The invitation to join the aliens for a meal was both thrilling and terrifying. Jen spent hours pacing her kitchen, replaying the holographic message in her mind. The images of the aliens laughing and sharing food had been warm and inviting, but the idea of boarding their ship still felt overwhelming. What would they be like? How would they react to humans? And most importantly, what should she bring? Alex, ever the optimist, tried to keep things light. "Relax, Jen," he said, leaning against her counter. "You're basically an intergalactic celebrity now. Just show up and dazzle them with your charm. And maybe some of that stew you made." Jen smiled weakly. "It's not that simple, Alex. This isn't just about me. It's about all of humanity. If I mess this up..." "You won't," Alex interrupted firmly. "You've been killing it this whole time. Besides, you've got me and Pat backing you up." He was right. Jen wasn't alone. Dr. Patricia Monroe had been working tirelessly to prepare for the meeting, analyzing every detail of the alien message and ensuring humanity was represented respectfully. Together, they decided to present the aliens with a fusion dish, a blend of Earth flavors, and the alien-inspired spices Jen had been experimenting with. It was a gesture of cooperation, a way of saying, "We're here to learn, but we also have something to share." The day of the meeting arrived faster than anyone expected. Jen, Alex, and Pat were chosen as representatives, along with a small team of diplomats and scientists. As they boarded the shuttle that would take them to the alien ship, Jen couldn't help feeling nervous. She clutched a container holding her dish tightly, as if it were a lifeline. When they reached the ship, the scale of it took Jen's breath away. It was massive, sleek, and otherworldly, glowing faintly with the same green hue as the mist. A hatch opened, revealing a corridor lined with soft, pulsating lights. The group stepped inside, their footsteps echoing in the silence. The aliens greeted them in a large chamber filled with floating tables and chairs. They were tall and slender, with smooth, shimmering skin that reflected the light like liquid metal. Their eyes, large and luminous, seemed to radiate curiosity rather than hostility. Jen felt her nerves ease slightly. There was no sign of weapons or aggression, only warmth and hospitality. One of the aliens approached, holding out a hand-like appendage. Jen hesitated before extending her own hand. To her surprise, the alien's touch was gentle, almost comforting. Then, using a series of musical tones and gestures, the alien communicated a single word: "Welcome." Pat translated the tones through a device she'd brought, explaining that the aliens called themselves the Zerithians. Food was central to their culture. It wasn't just sustenance, but a form of art, storytelling, and bonding. Jen nodded, understanding immediately. Cooking had always been her way of connecting with others, too. When it was time to eat, the Zerithians presented a feast unlike anything Jen had ever seen. Each dish seemed alive, shifting colors and textures as if responding to the diner's emotions. One bite filled her mouth with a burst of heat, followed by a cooling wave of mint and honey. Another tasted like sunlight and rain, evoking memories of childhood summers. Every flavor told a story, rich and vivid. Jen placed her dish on the table, explaining its significance. The Zerithians sampled it carefully, their expressions unreadable at first. Then one of them emitted a series of melodic tones that sounded unmistakably like laughter. Jen relaxed, realizing they understood and appreciated the gesture. As the meal continued, the atmosphere shifted from cautious politeness to genuine camaraderie. The Zerithians gestured enthusiastically, eager to teach Jen and her team about their techniques. In return, Jen shared stories of Earth's cuisines, describing everything from pizza to dumplings. Alex chimed in with jokes, earning chuckles even from the aliens. By the end of the evening, Jen knew this was just the beginning. The Zerithians weren't just visitors. They were partners, ready to share their knowledge and learn from humanity. And Jen, with her love of food and curiosity, had helped bridge the gap between two worlds. Back on Earth, news of the successful meeting with the Zerithians spread like wildfire. People who had been scared or skeptical just days before were now captivated by the idea of aliens sharing meals instead of threats. The story of Jen, Alex, and Pat's journey to the alien ship became a global sensation. Social media exploded with posts about interstellar cuisine, and late-night talk shows joked about ordering alien takeout. For the first time in history, humanity felt united, not by fear, but by curiosity and a shared love of food. Jen found herself at the center of it all. Reporters camped outside her house, eager to hear every detail about the Zerithians and their incredible feast. She described the flavors, the colors, and the way each dish seemed alive, responding to emotions. It wasn't just eating, she told one interviewer. It was experiencing. Every bite told a story. Alex, ever the joker, couldn't resist adding his own spin. Yeah, and let me tell you, these aliens know how to throw a dinner party. No awkward small talk, just good vibes and killer spices. The Zerithians' message was clear. They valued connection through food. Their culture revolved around meals as a way to bond, share knowledge, and celebrate life. Inspired by this, humanity began rethinking its relationship with food too. Restaurants started experimenting with dishes inspired by the alien recipes Jen had shared. Chefs combined bold spices with familiar ingredients, creating fusion meals that thrilled diners. One restaurant even introduced a galactic taco night, complete with neon-colored sauces and glow-in-the-dark tortillas. Meanwhile, Jen threw herself into work, determined to keep the momentum going. With Pat's help, she analyzed everything she'd learned aboard the ship, documenting techniques and flavors so others could replicate them. Her kitchen became a lab once again, filled with bubbling pots, strange aromas, and scribbled notes. Alex often stopped by, bringing snacks from his diner and offering moral support. "You're gonna be the most famous chef in the galaxy," he teased. "Don't forget us little people when you're dining with aliens." But Jen didn't want fame. She wanted understanding. The Zerithians had opened a door, and she was determined to walk through it. She proposed an idea, a cultural exchange program where humans and Zerithians could learn from each other. Scientists would study the aliens' technology, while chefs and artists explored their culinary traditions. Governments hesitated at first, wary of trusting outsiders, but public pressure soon won out. Humanity was ready to embrace the unknown. The Zerithians responded enthusiastically. Through a series of transmissions, they agreed to host more visits, inviting teams of researchers, cooks, and diplomats to their ship. In return, they expressed interest in learning about Earth's cultures. Jen suggested starting with something simple, a picnic. She envisioned blankets spread under the stars, humans and Zerithians sharing homemade dishes and stories. It was a humble idea, but it carried the promise of deeper connections. As plans for the exchange took shape, Jen reflected on how far they'd come. Just weeks ago, the world had braced for war. Now, people were talking about interstellar potlucks and cosmic cooking classes. The shift was remarkable and inspiring. One evening, As Jen sat in her backyard watching the glowing ship in the sky, Alex joined her with 2 cups of coffee. "So," he said, handing her one, "how does it feel to save the world with soup?" Jen laughed, shaking her head. "I didn't save the world, Alex. I just cooked a meal." "Yeah, but sometimes that's enough," Alex replied, his tone unusually serious. "Food brings people together. You proved that." Jen smiled, looking up at the ship. The Zerithians were still there, watching and waiting. They weren't invaders or conquerors. They were teachers, eager to share their gifts. And humanity, for once, was listening. As the stars twinkled above, Jen felt a deep sense of hope. This wasn't the end of the story. It was only the beginning. Somewhere out there, among the vastness of space, new flavors waited to be discovered, new friendships to be forged, and new worlds to explore. All it took was a little courage, creativity, and maybe a pinch of alien spice. The first official cultural exchange between humans and the Zerithians was nothing short of magical. A team of scientists, chefs, artists, and diplomats gathered at a designated meeting point near the alien ship, carrying gifts to share. Jen and Alex were part of the group, along with Pat, who had become a trusted advisor in bridging the gap between species. Each member of the team carried something meaningful: a painting, a musical instrument, or a dish inspired by their corner of Earth. When the Zerithians welcomed them aboard their ship again, the atmosphere felt different this time. It wasn't just curiosity. It was warmth, like old friends reuniting after years apart. The aliens led the group to a grand hall filled with floating tables, glowing lights, and an array of dishes that seemed to pulse with life. The air smelled rich and inviting, a mix of scents that reminded Jen of spices, flowers, and something indescribably sweet. Jen stepped forward, holding her contribution, a casserole made with earth ingredients but flavored with hints of the alien mist. She explained its significance, describing how it represented humanity's ability to adapt and create. The Zerithians sampled it carefully, their expressions lighting up with delight. One of them emitted a series of melodic tones, which Pat translated as gratitude. Alex, never one to shy away from attention, presented his own gift, a plate of space tacos, stuffed with colorful veggies and drizzled with neon sauces he'd concocted using Jen's notes. "It's not fancy," he admitted, scratching the back of his neck, "but I figured even aliens need comfort food." To everyone's surprise, the Zerithians loved it, laughing and mimicking Alex's playful gestures. As the meal progressed, the Zerithians shared more about their culture. Each dish they served told a story of their history, their values, and their dreams for the future. One dish shimmered like liquid gold and tasted of honey and sunshine, evoking memories of their homeworld. Another was cold and refreshing, designed to calm nerves during times of stress. Every bite was an experience, leaving the human guests awestruck. Pat marveled at the science behind it all. "They're not just cooking," she whispered to Jen. "They're encoding emotions into their food. It's incredible." Jen nodded, feeling inspired. She realized that while Earth's cuisines were diverse and flavorful, they rarely tapped into the deeper potential of food as a storytelling tool. The Zerithians had mastered this art, turning meals into moments of connection and understanding. By the end of the feast, the two groups were laughing and exchanging ideas. Artists sketched portraits of the Zerithians, while musicians played melodies that blended Earth instruments with alien harmonies. Scientists discussed theories, and chefs swapped recipes. For the first time, humanity didn't feel small or insignificant. It felt equal, capable of contributing something valuable to the universe. Before leaving, the Zerithians offered a final gift, a small vial of their mist, along with instructions for creating new flavors. They encouraged humanity to experiment, to blend their traditions with Zerithian techniques. "Share your stories," Pat translated their message. "Let food guide you." Back on Earth, the impact of the exchange was immediate. Restaurants began incorporating Zerithian-inspired methods into their menus, drawing crowds eager to taste the future. Cooking shows featured segments on interstellar cuisine, and schools started teaching kids about the science of flavor. Even Alex's diner gained popularity, thanks to his alien-approved tacos. Jen, however, focused on documenting everything she'd learned. She wrote articles, gave lectures, and collaborated with Pat on research papers. Her dream was to create a cookbook, not just for humans, but for anyone interested in exploring the cosmos through food. One evening, as she sat in her kitchen testing a new recipe, Alex stopped by with a six-pack of soda. "You know," he said, leaning against the counter, "you've already changed the world. What's next?" Jen smiled, stirring a pot of simmering stew. "Next, we keep learning, keep sharing, and maybe someday we'll cook our way to the stars." Alex grinned. "Sounds like a plan. Just don't forget to save me a seat at the galactic dinner table." As the aroma of spices filled the room, Jen felt a deep sense of purpose. This wasn't just about food. It was about connection, creativity, and hope. Together, humanity and the Zerithians had taken the first step toward a brighter future. And if a simple meal could bring two species together, then anything was possible. Months passed, and the partnership between humanity and the Zerithians grew stronger. What had started as a single meal aboard an alien ship blossomed into a thriving collaboration. People around the world embraced the idea of interstellar cuisine, experimenting with flavors and techniques inspired by the Zerithians. Restaurants introduced dishes that glowed faintly in the dark or changed colors when stirred. Home cooks tried their hand at blending earth spices with hints of the alien mist, creating meals that felt both familiar and otherworldly. Jen became a household name, celebrated not just as a chef, but as a pioneer. Her cookbook, Taste the Stars, hit shelves worldwide and quickly became a bestseller. It wasn't just recipes. It was a guide to understanding the universe through food. Each chapter told stories of her adventures, from decoding the alien recipe to sharing meals with the Zerithians. Readers loved how she made complex ideas simple and relatable, inspiring them to think beyond traditional cooking. Alex, meanwhile, turned his diner into a local hotspot for space-inspired comfort food. His glowing tacos and neon milkshakes drew crowds, and he even hosted weekly events where customers could try their hand at making alien-inspired dishes. He joked that if humanity ever colonized another planet, he'd be the first intergalactic fast food mogul. "Fast food is universal," he told Jen one afternoon. "Even aliens need fries." Pat continued her work studying the Zerithians' biology and technology, publishing groundbreaking research on how their sensory enhancements could benefit humanity. Scientists developed new ways to improve taste perception, helping people with conditions like anosmia, the loss of smell, regain some enjoyment of food. The alien mist, once feared as poison, became a symbol of hope and innovation. But it wasn't just about science or cooking. It was about connection. Humanity had found common ground with the Zerithians, proving that differences didn't have to divide. Art exhibits showcased paintings inspired by alien landscapes, while musicians composed symphonies blending Earth instruments with Zerithian harmonies. Schools taught kids about the importance of curiosity and cooperation, using the story of Jen's journey as an example. The Zerithians, too, seemed to thrive from the exchange. They sent regular transmissions, sharing more about their culture and asking questions about Earth's traditions. One day, they'd broadcast a message inviting humanity to visit their homeworld, a gesture that left the world speechless. While governments debated logistics, ordinary people dreamed of traveling among the stars. For Jen, life felt surreal yet fulfilling. She traveled the globe teaching workshops, meeting chefs eager to push culinary boundaries. At home, she spent hours testing new recipes, always striving to capture the magic of that first meal aboard the Zerithian ship. Alex often joined her, cracking jokes and offering feedback. "You're gonna run out of adjectives soon," he teased after tasting a particularly spicy soup. "What's next? This tastes like outer space." Despite her success, Jen never forgot why this all began. It wasn't fame or fortune, it was curiosity. She remembered the moment she realized the alien mist wasn't poison but seasoning. That small discovery had sparked a chain reaction, bringing two species together in ways no one could have predicted. One evening, as she stood in her backyard watching the glowing ship still hovering in the sky, Alex appeared with a plate of his latest creation. Deep-fried cinnamon rolls drizzled with glowing blue sauce. "Thought you might need a snack," he said, grinning. Jen laughed, taking a bite. The sweetness mingled with a subtle kick of spice, reminding her of everything she'd learned. "Not bad," she admitted, "but I think we can do better." "Better?" Alex raised an eyebrow. "You're impossible, you know that." "Maybe," Jen replied, smiling. "But isn't that the point? We keep trying, keep learning. Who knows what we'll discover next?" Above them, the ship pulsed softly, a silent reminder of the bond humanity had forged. Somewhere out there, the Zerithians were waiting, ready to share more stories, more flavors, more possibilities. And Jen knew that whatever came next, humanity would face it with open hearts and full plates. As the stars twinkled overhead, she felt grateful, not just for the adventure, but for the lesson it brought. Food wasn't just sustenance. It was a bridge, a language, a way to connect. Together, humanity and the Zerithians had proven that even in the vastness of space, there was room for friendship, and plenty of good meals along the way. Years passed, and the bond between humanity and the Zerithians only grew stronger. What had started as a simple misunderstanding turned into a partnership that transformed both species. Earth flourished with new ideas, technologies, and flavors, while the Zerithians discovered the beauty of human creativity and resilience. The exchange of knowledge and culture became a cornerstone of their relationship, celebrated in festivals, art, and shared meals. Jen's influence was everywhere. Her cookbook, Taste the Stars, remained a global phenomenon, inspiring generations of chefs and home cooks to experiment with interstellar cuisine. Cooking shows featured segments on blending Earth ingredients with alien techniques, and schools taught kids how to use food as a way to tell stories. Jen herself traveled less now, choosing instead to focus on mentoring young chefs and writing new books. Her kitchen, once cluttered with notes and jars, had become a place of calm reflection, a testament to how far she'd come. Alex's Diner evolved into a chain of restaurants called Space Bites, known for its quirky atmosphere and glowing dishes. He often joked that he owed his success to Jen's stubbornness and the aliens' weird mist. "If it weren't for you two," he'd say, pointing at Jen during interviews, "I'd still be flipping burgers in Ohio." Despite his fame, Alex stayed true to his roots, keeping his original diner open as a tribute to where it all began. Pat continued her groundbreaking research, earning awards and recognition for her work bridging biology and cenoculture. Her studies on sensory enhancement led to breakthroughs in medicine, helping people regain lost senses or experience the world in entirely new ways. She often credited Jen and Alex for sparking the curiosity that drove her forward. "They reminded me that science isn't just about answers, it's about asking the right questions," she said during a lecture. The Zerithians, too, thrived from the partnership. Their visits to Earth became more frequent, and they invited humans to explore their homeworld. Space travel advanced rapidly, thanks to shared technology. And soon, Earth launched its first joint mission with the Zerithians to study distant stars. It wasn't long before humanity realized the universe was full of wonders and possibilities. One evening, Jen hosted a small gathering at her home to celebrate the anniversary of that first meal aboard the Zerithian ship. Friends, family, and colleagues came together, sharing stories and laughter over plates of glowing dishes and spicy stews. Alex brought his signature tacos, while Pat contributed a dessert infused with hints of alien mist. The air buzzed with warmth and gratitude. As the night wore on, Jen stood outside, staring up at the glowing ship still orbiting Earth. Alex joined her, holding 2 cups of coffee. "So," he said, handing her one, What do you think they're up to tonight? Probably cooking something amazing, Jen replied with a smile. Or maybe they're just watching us, wondering what we'll try next. Alex chuckled. Well, whatever it is, I'm glad we didn't blow them up. Turns out, aliens make pretty good neighbors. Jen nodded, thinking about everything they'd accomplished together. Humanity had faced fear and uncertainty, but chose curiosity and connection instead. Through food, they had found a way to bridge the gap between worlds, proving that even in the vastness of space, there was room for understanding. Inside, someone raised a toast. To Jen, they said, and to the aliens who taught us that sometimes the best way to meet someone is by sharing a meal. Everyone cheered, and Jen felt a lump in her throat. It wasn't just her journey. It belonged to everyone who had dared to dream, to taste, and to trust. Somewhere in the galaxy, the Zerithians were likely raising their own glasses, celebrating the bond they had forged. As the stars twinkled above, Jen took a sip of her coffee, feeling content. The future was unpredictable, full of challenges and mysteries yet to uncover. But if humanity could face those challenges with the same spirit of curiosity and cooperation, then anything was possible. For now, though, she was happy to stand here, surrounded by friends and the glow of countless possibilities. After all, every great adventure started with a single step, or in this case, a single bite. And Jen knew, no matter where the road led, humanity would always find its way back to the table.